The glass doors of the ferry slammed shut behind her just as a man's voice cut through the pier. "Hey, Lydia Rowand." Lydia froze mid-step, the sharp coastal wind whipping her coat against her legs. The crowd shifted around her, boots thudding on wet wood, gulls screaming overhead. She didn't turn immediately. She already knew that voice. It had lived in her nightmares for 7 years. "Running again," Marcus Vale called, louder this time. "Figures." She exhaled slowly and turned. Marcus stood near the railing, hands tucked casually into his tailored coat, that familiar crooked smile on his face, the one that always looked charming to outsiders and predatory to her. Time had been kind to him, or maybe the town had been. Either way, he looked comfortable, untouched. "You've got the wrong person," Lydia said evenly. A few heads turned. Curiosity sparked fast in small towns. Marcus laughed. "You always did like pretending things didn't happen." Her pulse thudded, but she kept her face still. "Step away from me." He moved closer instead, lowering his voice. "You vanish for years, then show up for your father's memorial like nothing burned behind you. That's bold." "I'm here for 1 day," Lydia said. "Don't mistake proximity for permission." His smile tightened. "You don't get to set rules here." Something inside her shifted, not fear, recognition. He was still trying to own space that no longer belonged to him. "I already did," she said, 7 years ago." Marcus leaned in, his breath warm, his tone mocking. "Everyone remembers why you left, Lydia. You think time cleaned that up." Her fingers curled inside her sleeves. "Move." He glanced around, deliberately raising his voice. "Careful, people might think you're ashamed." A pause, then Lydia stepped closer, meeting his eyes. "If shame had killed me," she said quietly, "I wouldn't be standing here." For a second, something flickered across his face. Annoyance, maybe. He hadn't expected that. She turned and walked away before he could respond, her boots striking the pier with steady rhythm. The town rose ahead of her, gray and picturesque, unchanged in the way only places that never evolve can be. Ashmere Bay still smelled of salt and secrets. The Rowan house loomed at the end of the road, all white wood and narrow windows, as if it had been holding its breath since she left. Inside, the air was cold. "You're late," Elena Rowan said from the sitting room without looking up. Lydia set her bag down carefully. The ferry was delayed. Elena finally turned. Her eyes swept over Lydia like an inspection. "You look thinner." "I am," Lydia replied. "Grief does that." A beat passed, then Elena nodded, lips pressed tight. "Your room is the same. Try not to disturb anything." Naomi appeared in the doorway, phone already in hand. "Wow," she said lightly. "Didn't think you'd actually come." Lydia met her cousin's gaze. "I didn't think you'd miss the chance to watch." Naomi smiled, sweet and sharp. "You always were dramatic." Later that night, Lydia stood in the hallway outside the study, listening. "She doesn't suspect anything," Naomi whispered. Marcus's voice followed, low and confident. "She never did." Lydia's breath caught. "The accounts are still clean," Naomi continued. "Everything still points back to her if she says anything." "She won't," Marcus said. "People like her don't talk, they disappear." Lydia pressed her palm to the wall, steadying herself. So it had been real, not paranoia, not coincidence. They had built her fall carefully. In her room, Lydia locked the door and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. Her hands shook now, not from fear, but from clarity. She pulled out her phone and typed one message. "They're still lying. It's worse than I thought." The reply came almost instantly. "Then we proceed." She closed her eyes. Downstairs, Naomi laughed softly. Marcus poured another drink. Neither of them knew that the silence they had relied on for years had already ended. The memorial began with rain. It fell suddenly, sharp and cold, drumming against the stone steps of Harbor Hall as people gathered beneath black umbrellas. Lydia stood near the edge of the crowd, her coat buttoned to her throat, eyes fixed on the closed doors. She hadn't cried yet. That scared her more than tears. Naomi slipped in beside her. "Funny how weather knows," she said softly. "Your father always hated rain." Lydia didn't look at her. "So do I." Naomi tilted her head. "You don't have to stay long. No one would blame you for leaving early." "I'm not here for comfort," Lydia replied. Inside, the hall smelled of old wood and flowers. Murmurs filled the space, stopping briefly as Lydia walked past. Some people nodded politely. Others stared too long. A few looked away as if guilt were contagious. Marcus was already there. He stood near the front row, speaking quietly with a councilman, his posture relaxed, respectful, grieving. The performance was flawless. When his eyes met Lydia's, he didn't smile this time. He inclined his head just enough to look gracious. She took a seat 3 rows back. As the service began, Alina leaned toward her. "Please," she whispered, "don't cause anything today." Lydia's jaw tightened. "I didn't plan the lies." Alina straightened, offended. "This isn't the time." When the eulogies ended, people rose to file out. Marcus moved fast, intercepting Lydia near the aisle. "You look tired," he said. "This place does that to people." "Step aside." "You're still angry," he observed. "I always wondered how long that would last." "Forever," Lydia said, "if you keep talking." His smile returned, faint and dangerous. "Careful, people are listening." "Good," she said. "Maybe they should." For a moment he studied her, then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. "We'll talk later." "I doubt it," Lydia said and walked past him. Outside, the rain had eased. Conversations bloomed again, low and sharp. Lydia made it halfway down the steps before a voice rang out. "Lydia Rowand." She turned to see a woman pushing through the crowd, phone raised. "Is it true you left town because of financial misconduct?" The word hit like a slap. "I don't answer anonymous accusations," Lydia said calmly. The woman persisted. "There's an article circulating, says you manipulated funds meant for your father's care." Naomi gasped loudly. "Oh my God." Marcus stepped forward, palms raised. "This isn't appropriate." The reporter's eyes flicked between them. "So it's false." Lydia met her gaze. "Entirely." The woman hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you." As she retreated, Naomi leaned close. "You should have stayed gone." Lydia turned slowly. "Did you enjoy that?" Naomi's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Enjoyment has nothing to do with survival." That night, Lydia sat alone in her room, laptop open, scrolling through the article. The lies were surgical, dates twisted, amounts inflated, her name repeated like a verdict. Her phone rang. "Tell me everything," Caleb said. She did the fairy Marcus, the overheard conversation, the article. When she finished, there was a brief silence. Then, "I'll need access to your old accounts." "They don't exist anymore." "They always exist," Caleb said gently. "They just hide." Downstairs, Naomi paced the kitchen. "She's acting different," she said into her phone. "Not defensive, not scared." Marcus's voice crackled through the speaker. "She's bluffing." "I don't think so." "You're overreacting." Naomi stopped packing. "You said this was airtight." "It is." "Then why do I feel like she's watching us?" Marcus sighed. "Because you're nervous, stick to the plan." The next morning, Lydia woke to a knock. Alina stood in the doorway, eyes red. "We need to talk." Lydia sat up. "Say it." "There are questions," Alina said. "About money, about why accounts were opened in your name years ago." Lydia swung her legs over the bed. "Who told you that?" Alina hesitated. "Marcus." "Of course. He says he protected you." Lydia laughed once sharp. "He buried me." Alina's voice wavered. "Why didn't you come to me?" "Because you told me to keep quiet," Lydia said. "Because you chose peace over truth." Alina flinched. Later at the cafe by the docks, Lydia overheard whispers again. This time she didn't hide. "You're pushing too hard," Naomi was saying. "If this blows back." Marcus leaned across the table. "It won't." "It already is." Marcus's tone hardened. "I said it won't." Lydia stepped into view. "Funny," she said. "That's what you said 7 years ago." Naomi paled. Marcus stood slowly. "You shouldn't be listening to private conversations." "Neither should you," Lydia replied. "But you never respected that." People were stirring now. "This ends today," Marcus said quietly. She smiled for the first time. "I agree." That evening, Caleb's message came through. "We found discrepancies, big ones." Lydia closed her eyes, heart racing. The lie was starting to crack. And this time, she wasn't leaving before it broke. By the third day, Ashmere Bay felt smaller. Lydia noticed it in the way conversations stopped when she entered a room, in how shopkeepers hesitated before taking her card, in the sudden politeness layered over suspicion. The article had spread faster than truth ever did. New versions appeared online, screenshots, comments, speculation stitched together into something uglier than the original lie. She sat in the passenger seat of a parked car by the marina, phone pressed to her ear. "They're reopening everything," she said. "I can feel it." "That was the point," Caleb replied. "Pressure exposes seams. They're saying I used Dad's illness to siphon money, that I ran. You left because you were cornered." "Yes," Lydia said, "and they know it." Across the street, Marcus exited the yacht club, laughing with two men. He looked relaxed, victorious. "Do you want me there?" Caleb asked. "No," she said without hesitation. "Not yet." A pause. "You're sure?" "They're still underestimating me," Lydia said. "I don't want to fix that." That afternoon, Alina called a family meeting. They sat around the long dining table, the same one where Lydia had once been told to apologize for causing trouble when she was 19. Naomi sat with her arms folded. Marcus leaned against the wall, invited, unavoidable. "We need clarity," Alina began. "This town is talking." Marcus nodded sympathetically. "I hate that it's happening this way." Lydia looked at Alina. "You invited him." "He's involved," Alina said, "whether we like it or not." "I'm involved," Lydia corrected. "This is about me." Marcus stepped forward, then explained the accounts. Silence dropped hard. "What accounts?" Alina asked. Lydia turned to Naomi. "You want to tell her?" Naomi scoffed. "I don't know what you're talking about." "4 credit lines," Lydia said evenly. "Opened over 2 years, all in my name, all tied to addresses I never lived at." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "You're accusing family now." "I'm stating facts." Alina's face drained. "Naomi." Naomi laughed, sharp and brittle. "This is absurd." "Then you won't mind an audit," Lydia said. Marcus slammed his glass down. "Enough. You don't get to interrogate people after disappearing." "I didn't disappear," Lydia said. "I survived." Marcus pointed at her. "You're unstable." Lydia smiled faintly. "That's not evidence." The meeting dissolved into shouting. Alina cried. Naomi stormed out. Marcus lingered. "You think you've changed," he said quietly, "but you're still reacting." Lydia stepped closer. "You think I came back to argue, that's your mistake." That night, the smear escalated. A new post surfaced, this time with screenshots of emails allegedly sent by Lydia authorizing transfers. The signature at the bottom was hers, perfectly copied. Her phone buzzed nonstop. "Tell me you didn't send those," Alina begged. Lydia stared at the screen. "I didn't." Marcus called an hour later. "I told you this would get messy," he said. "You forged my signature." "Prove it." She hung up. Caleb called minutes later. "Those documents," he said calmly, "they're clumsy." Relief rushed through her. "You're sure?" "Too sure. The signature matches a version you stopped using 8 years ago. The metadata is worse." "So we can expose him." "Yes," Caleb said, "but he's escalating because he's cornered. Expect more." He was right. The next morning, Lydia found her old storage unit broken into. Boxes were torn apart, files missing, personal letters scattered on the floor like trash. Her hands shook as she picked up a photo, her and Naomi as teenagers, smiling. "So this is how," she whispered. At the police station, the officer barely concealed his skepticism. "Your ex-boyfriend reported similar concerns," he said. "Says you're trying to rewrite history." Lydia leaned forward. "History doesn't need my help, it documented itself." He raised a brow. "That's so." "Yes," she said, "and you'll see it." Outside, Marcus waited. "Breaking into your own unit now," he mocked. She stared at him. "You're afraid." He laughed. "Of you." "Of paper trails," she replied. "Of timelines, of things that don't forget." His smile faded. That evening, Naomi confronted her in the hallway. "You think you're better than us?" Naomi snapped. "You always did." I think you're scared, Lydia said. Naomi's eyes flashed. You ruined my life. I didn't touch it, Lydia replied. You built this. Naomi stepped closer. You don't understand what he promised me. That's the problem, Lydia said softly. I do. Later that night, Lydia sat on the floor of her room, surrounded by files Caleb had digitized years ago, things she never thought she'd need again. Her phone buzzed. We have recordings, Caleb texted. Naomi, Marcus, clear as day. Lydia closed her eyes. Downstairs, Marcus paced the kitchen, phone to his ear. She's not backing down, Naomi whispered. Then we make her, Marcus said. Outside, thunder rolled over Ashmere Bay. The storm was no longer coming. It had arrived. The storm broke just before dawn. Wind slammed against the Rowan house, rattling the old windows hard enough to wake Lydia from a shallow sleep. She sat up, heart racing, listening to rain lash the roof like thrown gravel. For a moment, she thought she heard footsteps in the hallway. She held her breath. Nothing. Her phone vibrated on the nightstand. They're moving money, Caleb texted, right now. She swung her legs off the bed. From where? One of the accounts tied to your name. They're trying to drain it before sunrise. I knew it, Lydia whispered. She grabbed her coat and keys without thinking. The house was dark as she slipped downstairs, every creak of the floorboards sounding too loud. At the front door, Eleanor's voice startled her. Where are you going? Lydia turned. Eleanor stood at the foot of the stairs in a robe, eyes sharp despite the hour. They're committing fraud in my name, Lydia said. Again. Eleanor hesitated. Marcus said. Marcus is lying, Lydia snapped. Then softer, and if you stop me now, you're choosing him again. Eleanor's mouth opened, then closed. She stepped aside. Rain soaked Lydia the moment she reached the street. She drove straight to the marina, hands tight on the wheel, phone pressed to her ear. I need you to freeze it, Lydia said. I already am, Caleb replied. But they're scrambling, expect retaliation. She parked near the docks. The yacht club lights were on. Through the rain, she saw Marcus's car. Her pulse spiked. He's here. Don't confront him alone. I won't, Lydia said. I'll let him talk. She stepped inside the yacht club, water dripping from her coat. Marcus stood near the bar, phone in hand, face tense. Naomi hovered nearby, pale and frantic. Marcus looked up. You're awake early. So are you, Lydia said. Transferring money before sunrise usually looks bad. Naomi's eyes widened. You said it was handled. Marcus shot her a warning look. Go wait in the car. Naomi hesitated, then she left. Marcus turned back to Lydia. You don't understand how this works. I understand enough, Lydia said. You forged documents, you stole identities, and now you're trying to run. He laughed, but it sounded hollow. You have no proof. My husband disagrees. The word landed like a blade. Marcus stiffened. You're what? Lydia met his stare. My husband, he's watching every move you make. For the first time, Marcus looked genuinely rattled. You married behind my back. I rebuilt without you, Lydia said. That's different. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You think a name protects you? No, Lydia said. Evidence does. His phone buzzed again. He checked it, swore under his breath. Something wrong? Lydia asked. He leaned in, eyes cold. You're making a mistake. No, she replied. You did. Outside, sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Marcus straightened, smoothing his coat. This town knows me. Lydia smiled thinly. It's about to know you better. She left before he could answer. By noon, the smear campaign shifted tone. New posts appeared, angrier now. Accusations multiplied. Comment sections exploded with speculation and blame. Lydia's name trended locally, wrapped in words like fraud, gold digger, unstable. Naomi called her screaming. You promised he had it under control. I promised nothing, Lydia said. You're ruining everything. You helped, Lydia replied. This is the result. Naomi sobbed. He said you'd never fight back. Lydia closed her eyes. That was his lie. That afternoon, Eleanor confronted Lydia again, shaking with fury and fear. There are police asking questions, Eleanor said. About accounts, about signatures. Good, Lydia said. You're tearing this family apart. No, Lydia replied quietly. I'm telling the truth. Eleanor slapped the table. Why now? Because silence nearly killed me, Lydia said, and I won't let it do that again. That evening, Caleb arrived. He stepped into the Rowan house like he belonged there, calm, composed, carrying a leather folder under his arm. Eleanor stared at him, stunned. I'm Caleb Arden, he said, Lydia's husband. Marcus appeared in the doorway, eyes blazing. You think you can walk in here? Caleb didn't raise his voice. I think you've committed multiple felonies. Marcus laughed harshly. Prove it. Caleb opened the folder. We can start with the forged transfer authorizations, then the identity theft, then the recorded calls. Naomi froze. Recorded calls. Marcus rounded on her. You said. I didn't know, Naomi cried. Caleb slid his phone across the table. You might recognize your voices. The room went silent as audio filled the air, Marcus's voice smooth and calculating. Naomi's nervous but complicit. Lydia watched Eleanor's face crumble. Marcus lunged for the phone. Caleb stepped back. Touch me, Caleb said evenly, and you'll add assault. Marcus stopped. You think this ends me? Marcus spat. Caleb looked at Lydia, then back at him. No, you did that yourself. Outside, headlights flashed, doors slammed. Someone knocked hard. Police, a voice called. Naomi broke down sobbing. Eleanor sank into a chair. Marcus stood still, jaw clenched, eyes locked on Lydia. You planned this. Lydia stepped forward. I survived it. As officers entered, cuffs glinting, the truth finally filled the room, heavy, undeniable. And for the first time since she was 19, Lydia felt the weight lift from her chest. Not relief. Release. The house didn't feel the same after the police left. Their footsteps faded, the doors closed, and silence poured into every corner, thick and disorienting. Lydia stood near the window, watching red and blue lights dissolve into the rain-soaked street. Marcus had been taken away without another word, his face carved into something rigid and unreadable. Naomi hadn't stopped crying. Eleanor hadn't spoken at all. Caleb broke the quiet first. This isn't over. Lydia nodded. I know. Naomi sat curled on the couch, mascara streaked down her cheeks. He said he loved me, she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. He said you abandoned us, that you were selfish. Lydia turned slowly, and you believed him. Naomi looked up, eyes wild. He showed me documents, transfers, messages. He said you took everything and left us to clean it up. And you never questioned why everything he showed you came from him? Lydia asked. Naomi's mouth trembled. I wanted to believe it. That's not innocence, Lydia said quietly. That's convenience. Eleanor finally spoke, voice hollow. Why didn't you fight harder back then? Lydia felt something twist in her chest. I did, she said. You just didn't see it, or you didn't want to. Eleanor covered her face. I thought if we stayed quiet, it would pass. It never does, Lydia said. It only grows teeth. Later that night, Lydia sat on the floor of her childhood room, back against the bed, knees drawn to her chest. Caleb sat across from her, files spread between them. They'll try again, she said. They always do, he replied, especially when they feel exposed. I don't want to be surprised anymore. Caleb nodded. Then we don't let them breathe. The next morning, the town woke up buzzing. Marcus's arrest hadn't stayed quiet. Someone had filmed it. Someone always did. The footage spread online, grainy, dramatic, undeniable. The same people who had shared the smear now shared the arrest, captions shifting from certainty to confusion. Naomi's phone rang nonstop. What do I say? She asked Lydia, panicked. Tell the truth, Lydia replied. Or say nothing, those are your options now. Naomi swallowed. If I talk, I go down too. You already did, Lydia said. By midday, reporters lined the street outside the Rowan house. Eleanor closed the curtains with shaking hands. This is too much, she whispered. People are starring. Lydia stood beside her. They stared before, you just didn't mind when it was you. A knock came at the door. Caleb checked through the window. Legal counsel for Marcus. Lydia's jaw tightened. Already. Caleb opened the door just enough to speak. All communication goes through me. The man handed over a card. Mr. Vale maintains his innocence. Caleb smiled politely. Then he'll enjoy discovery. The man left. That afternoon, Naomi packed a bag. I can't stay here, she said, eyes red. Everyone knows. Everyone always knew something, Lydia replied. They just chose what was easier to believe. Naomi hesitated. I didn't mean to hurt you. Lydia met her gaze. Intent doesn't erase damage. Naomi nodded, defeated, and walked out. That evening, Lydia and Caleb took a walk along the shore. The rain had cleared, leaving the sea restless and dark. I used to think coming back would finish me, Lydia said, like reopening a wound. And now, Caleb asked. Now it feels like surgery, she said, painful, necessary. Caleb stopped walking. There's something else. She turned. What? He's not acting alone anymore, Caleb said. Someone leaked additional documents this afternoon, things Marcus never intended to surface. Lydia's stomach dropped. From where? From your past, Caleb said gently. Your old friend, Megan. Lydia laughed bitterly. Of course. The next article hit that night. It painted Lydia as calculated, cold, manipulative. Suggested she'd married Caleb for protection. Implied she'd orchestrated the entire collapse to appear innocent. The comments were brutal. She's playing victim. Always knew she was trouble. Money covers everything. Lydia stared at the screen until the words blurred. They're louder now, she said. Yes, Caleb replied, because they're losing control. Eleanor knocked on the door, holding her phone. They're saying horrible things. Lydia stood. They always did. You don't deserve this, Eleanor whispered. Lydia looked at her. You didn't think so before. Eleanor flinched. I was wrong. Lydia didn't respond. Apologies arrived late when silence had been safer. That night, Lydia dreamed of the marina, of Marcus's voice echoing across water, calling her name like a claim. She woke with a gasp, heart pounding. Her phone buzzed. He wants to talk, Caleb texted. Through counsel, he's offering a deal. Lydia sat up, suddenly alert. What kind of deal? One that shifts blame. She stared at the wall. Of course. By morning, it was official. Marcus Vale was offering cooperation in exchange for reduced charges, and his story had a new angle. One that pointed directly at Lydia. Caleb met her eyes. This is where it gets ugly. Lydia stood slowly, resolve hardening. Then let's stop being polite. Outside, Ashmere Bay stirred under a pale sky, unaware that the quiet phase was over. The truth was done whispering, and Lydia was done waiting. The deal hit the news before breakfast. Marcus Vale, former civic darling, now cooperating witness. The phrasing was deliberate. It framed him as cornered but reasonable, a man making amends. And threaded through every paragraph was Lydia's name, implied, suggested, never outright accused, but close enough to stain. Lydia read the article twice, jaw tight. He's repositioning himself, Caleb said from the doorway. From villain to victim. He's always done that, Lydia replied. He bleeds on cue. Her phone rang, unknown number. Caleb shook his head. Don't. She answered anyway, yes. Lydia, Marcus's voice said, smooth as ever. I thought you'd want to hear it from me. Her grip tightened. You're not allowed to contact me. I'm allowed to talk, he said. I'm not threatening you. You never did, Lydia said. You just ruined people quietly. He chuckled. You always dramatize. What do you want? To make this easier, Marcus said, for both of us. There is no both. I can say things, he continued calmly. Things that complicate your husband's involvement, things about timing, motive. Lydia closed her eyes. You forged my name. And you let me, he said softly. That did it. You don't get to rewrite consent, Lydia said. Not then, not now. I gave you a way out, Marcus said. You ran. I escaped, she replied. You chased. Silence stretched. You think the world will side with you? Marcus asked. A woman who vanished and came back married to power. I don't need sides, Lydia said. I need records. She hung up. Caleb exhaled slowly. He's trying to provoke you. He's trying to survive, Lydia said. There's a difference. By noon, subpoenas landed. Caleb's firm, Lydia's old employers, even the marina. Marcus was flinging accusations wide, hoping something would stick. Hopping noise would bury facts. At the courthouse steps, cameras clustered like insects. Lydia walked past them without stopping. Ms. Rowan, did you orchestrate this? Are you hiding behind your husband? Did you manipulate evidence? She didn't answer. Inside, Naomi sat on a bench, pale and shaking. She looked up as Lydia approached. They told me I could reduce my sentence, Naomi whispered, if I testify. Lydia studied her. Against who? Naomi swallowed. You. There it was. What did he promise you? Lydia asked. Naomi's eyes filled. That I wouldn't be alone. Lydia nodded once. He promised me the same thing. In the hearing room, Marcus entered in a tailored suit, cuffs gone, confidence back in place. He met Lydia's gaze and smiled faintly, as if sharing a secret. The prosecutor began. Marcus spoke smoothly, rehearsed. He admitted to mistakes, to poor judgment, but shifted intent like a magician's hand. I believed Lydia was complicit, he said. I trusted her. Lydia felt heat rise in her chest, but she stayed still. Caleb leaned toward her. Wait. Then it was Lydia's turn. She stood heart steady. I didn't disappear, she said clearly. I was erased. Marcus tilted his head, amused. I was told to stay quiet, Lydia continued. By my family, by people who said peace mattered more than truth. Naomi stared at the floor. I left because every account, every rumor, every accusation traced back to one source, Lydia said, eyes locked on Marcus. And now, when faced with evidence, that same source wants sympathy. Marcus scoffed. You're emotional. Yes, Lydia said, because this mattered. Caleb rose, permission to present evidence. The judge nodded. Screens lit up. Timelines, metadata, audio clips. Marcus's voice played again, cold, precise, damning. I'll take care of it, she won't fight. The room shifted. Naomi gasped. Marcus stood abruptly. That recording is illegal. Caleb didn't blink. It's admissible. The judge raised a hand. Sit down, Mr. Vale. Marcus didn't. I made her, Marcus snapped, mask slipping. Everything she is came from me. The words echoed. Lydia felt the last thread snap. No, she said quietly. Everything I am survived you. The judge ordered Marcus restrained. Outside, reporters swarmed again, but this time the questions sounded different. Ms. Rowan, do you feel vindicated? Do you forgive your family? What's next for you? Lydia paused. I didn't come back to win, she said. I came back to end it. That night she sat on the porch of the Rowan house, the town lights distant and dim. Elena joined her, hesitant. I should have protected you. Yes, Lydia said, you should have. Elena nodded, tears falling. Inside, Naomi packed again, this time under supervision. Caleb stepped beside Lydia. He's done. Lydia watched the horizon. No, she said, he's exposed, that's different. Caleb smiled faintly. You're ready to leave. Yes, Lydia said, but not running. The next morning, as the sun rose over Ashmere Bay, Lydia closed the door one last time. The past stayed behind. The truth walked with her. The town didn't sleep that night. By morning, Ashmere Bay was split clean down the middle. Some people avoided Lydia's name entirely, as if saying it aloud might stain them. Others said it too loudly, overcorrecting, suddenly righteous now that the truth had receipts. Lydia watched it unfold from the passenger seat as Caleb drove them toward the courthouse again. Another hearing, another round. You don't have to be there today, Caleb said. I can handle it. I know, Lydia replied, but I want to hear what they say when they can't lie anymore. Inside, the air was tense. Naomi sat with her lawyer, shoulders slumped. She didn't look up when Lydia passed. Marcus hadn't arrived yet. When he did, it was different. No tailored confidence, no easy smile. His suit looked wrinkled, his eyes sharp and restless like a man counting exits. He glanced at Lydia, then away, jaw tight. The prosecutor wasted no time. We have additional evidence. she said, voice firm, including proof of coordinated manipulation involving media leaks and witness coaching. Marcus's head snapped up. That's not. Sit down, his attorney hissed. The prosecutor continued. The cooperating agreement is under review. A murmur rippled through the room. Marcus stood. You said. The judge's gavel cracked. Mr. Vale, you will remain seated or be removed. For the first time, Lydia saw real fear on Marcus's face. Outside, during recess, Naomi intercepted Lydia in the hallway. They're saying the deal might be revoked, Naomi whispered, frantic. He told me I'd be safe. Lydia looked at her steadily. He told you what you needed to hear. Naomi's voice broke. What happens to me? That depends, Lydia said, on what you're willing to admit. Naomi wiped her eyes. I didn't start this. No, Lydia said, but you fed it. Naomi nodded slowly. I'll tell them everything. Back inside, the tone shifted. Emails appeared on screen, threads Naomi had never seen before. Instructions, scripts, lines to repeat, dates matching every public accusation. Marcus's voice echoed again, colder this time. She'll doubt herself, that's the key. Once she does, the rest is easy. Lydia's chest tightened, but she didn't look away. When it was over, Marcus was escorted out first, this time in handcuffs. As he passed Lydia, he stopped. You think this makes you whole? He said under his breath. You're still the girl who left. Lydia leaned in just enough for him to hear. And you're still the man who couldn't let her go. He was pulled away before he could answer. By afternoon, the town's tone flipped again. Headlines changed, words like alleged disappeared. Pattern appeared, abuse, fraud, coercion. Megan's name surfaced publicly for the first time. She called Lydia that night. I didn't know it would go this far, Megan said, voice shaking. You knew enough, Lydia replied. I was angry, Megan admitted. You left, you got out, I stayed. That doesn't make betrayal inevitable, Lydia said. Megan sniffed. I thought exposing you would make me feel better. Did it? Silence. No, Megan whispered. Lydia ended the call. Later, Elena approached Lydia with an envelope in her hands. These came today, she said. Old letters from you, I never opened them. Lydia stared at the envelope, heart thudding. Why not? I was afraid, Elena said, of what I'd see. Lydia took the envelope but didn't open it. Fear isn't neutral, she said gently. It chooses sides. That night, Lydia packed. Not in a rush, not in anger. Each item folded carefully, deliberately. Her past fit into fewer boxes than she'd imagined. Caleb leaned against the doorway. Where do you want to go? Somewhere quiet, Lydia said. Somewhere I don't have to prove I deserve peace. He smiled. I know a place. The next morning, as they loaded the car, Naomi stood at the edge of the driveway. I testified, she said quietly. Lydia nodded. I know. I don't expect forgiveness. You shouldn't, Lydia said, but honesty is a start. Naomi swallowed. Will you ever talk to me again? Lydia considered it. Maybe, when silence isn't your shield. Naomi nodded, accepting that was more than she deserved. As the car pulled away, Lydia looked back once. The Rowan house stood still, unchanged. It always would. But she was. The road stretched ahead, clean and open, and for the first time, Lydia didn't feel like she was escaping. She was choosing. And that made all the difference. The drive out of Ashmere Bay should have felt like relief. Instead, Lydia felt alert, wired, as if her body didn't trust quiet yet. The town shrank in the rearview mirror, but the tension stayed with her, coiled and waiting. She watched the road while Caleb drove, trees blurring past under a pale sky. You're still bracing, he said. I don't believe in clean endings, Lydia replied. Not with him. Caleb nodded, good instinct. They hadn't been gone an hour when his phone rang. He checked the screen, frowned, and answered. Yes, I see. Send it to me now. He hung up slowly. What is it? Lydia asked. Marcus filed an emergency motion, Caleb said. Claiming coercion, says the recordings were taken out of context. Lydia let out a breathless laugh. He never stops. He's also nomming you directly now, Caleb added, accusing you of manipulating witnesses, including Naomi. Lydia's smile faded. So this is his last swing. Yes, Caleb said, and it's reckless. They stopped at a quiet roadside cafe. Lydia barely tasted her coffee as Caleb spread documents across the small table, his finger tracing timelines. He's contradicting himself, Caleb said. Different versions, different dates, judges hate that. He's desperate, Lydia said. That's when he's most dangerous. Her phone buzzed, unknown number. She stared at it for a long moment, then answered. You should have stayed gone, Marcus's voice said, stripped of charm, raw with anger. Lydia's spine went rigid. You're not supposed to call me. Rules change when people lie, he snapped. You're the only one still lying, she said. You think this is over, Marcus said. You humiliated me, you took everything. You took it from yourself, Lydia replied. I just stopped protecting you. A sharp inhale on the other end. I made you relevant. You made me afraid, Lydia said. There's a difference. You'll always be that girl to them, Marcus hissed. The one who ran. And you'll always be the man who couldn't control her, Lydia replied. That's what's killing you. She hung up, hands shaking, not from fear but from adrenaline. Caleb watched her carefully. He crossed a line. Yes, Lydia said, and he knows it. That evening they reached the city. Caleb's building rose sleek and glassed, all clean lines and distance from the past. Lydia stood at the window of the apartment later, watching traffic pulse below like a living thing. For the first time in days, she slept. She dreamed of water again, but this time she wasn't drowning. She was standing at the edge, watching the tide come in, knowing when to step back. The next morning, the motion escalated. Marcus's attorney went public, holding a press conference on the courthouse steps. Cameras flashed as accusations were aired with theatrical outrage. This case has been distorted, the attorney declared. My client was manipulated by a woman with significant resources and motive. Lydia watched the broadcast in silence. They're testing public sympathy, Caleb said, trying to muddy perception before the ruling. And Lydia asked. And it's backfiring, Caleb said, tapping his tablet. People are starting to see a pattern. Comments scrolled past, not kind, not forgiving. He sounds unhinged. Why does every story involve him controlling someone? She looks calm, he looks desperate. By afternoon, another shoe dropped. Megan was subpoenaed. She called Lydia in a panic. They're asking about messages I deleted. I didn't think they could recover them. They can, Lydia said. I didn't mean to help him hurt you. You did, Lydia replied. What you mean now matters less than what you say next. Megan's voice cracked. If I tell the truth, I lose everything. Lydia was quiet for a moment. I lost everything once, she said, and I lived. That evening, Naomi testified again. This time, there were no half-truths. She described the grooming, the promises, the scripts Marcus fed her, how he framed Lydia as dangerous, unstable, someone who had to be preemptively discredited. When it was over, the courtroom was silent. The judge recessed early. Caleb exhaled. That did real damage. Lydia nodded. He knows. And Marcus did know. That night he was transferred to a different holding facility for his own safety. The headline used neutral language. The subtext was anything but. Lydia sat on the balcony, city lights reflecting in her eyes. I used to think power was volume, she said. Who could speak loudest? And now, Caleb asked. Now I know it's endurance, Lydia said. Who can stand when the noise dies? Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from an unfamiliar contact. I worked with him, I saw what he did. I'm ready to talk. Lydia's heart skipped. Caleb read it over her shoulder, an insider. Yes, Lydia said softly, the one he never accounted for. She looked out at the city again, pulse steady. Marcus had built his world on control, on silence, on the belief that no one would come forward unless pushed. He was about to learn the most dangerous truth of all. People didn't need pressure to speak. Sometimes they just needed permission. The insider arrived with a backpack and shaking hands. Lydia watched from across the cafe as the woman hesitated at the door, scanning the room like someone expecting to be followed. She was younger than Lydia expected, mid-20s at most, hair pulled back tight, eyes ringed with exhaustion. "That's her," Caleb murmured. When the woman finally approached, she didn't sit right away. "I don't have much time," she said, "if he finds out I talked." "He already suspects," Lydia said gently. "That's why you're here." The woman swallowed and sat. "My name is Iris. I worked for Marcus for 3 years." Caleb slid a recorder onto the table, visible, deliberate. "You're safe to speak." Iris laughed weakly. "No one is safe with him. He just decides who you are, then convinces everyone else." Lydia felt a familiar chill. "Tell us what you saw." Iris took a breath. "He kept files on people, not just financial, personal, weaknesses, fears, things said in confidence. He called it leverage." Caleb's eyes sharpened, including Lydia. "Yes," Iris said, "especially Lydia." Lydia's hands curled slowly. "What did he keep?" "Old emails, messages he never sent but drafted, notes about how to frame situations. He used your silence like proof of guilt." Lydia nodded. "Where are the files?" Iris hesitated. "Cloud storage encrypted, I have access." Caleb leaned forward. "Do you still?" "For now." Lydia met Iris's gaze. "If you do this, there's no halfway." "I know," Iris said. "I'm tired of being scared." They moved quickly. Back at Caleb's office, the air hummed with urgency as Iris logged in, hands trembling. Folders populated the screen, dates, names, annotations. Lydia's name appeared again and again. Caleb exhaled sharply. "This is extensive." Iris's voice cracked. "He used to say, if you control the story early, the truth never catches up." Lydia stared at the screen. "He built this around me." "Yes," Iris said, "because you left and he needed to punish that." Hours later, the package was prepared. Documents, metadata, internal notes tying every move back to Marcus. A map of manipulation laid bare. Caleb sent it directly to the prosecution. "Once this lands," he said, "there's no recovery." Lydia nodded, "Then let it land." The fallout was immediate. The emergency motion collapsed within hours. News outlets pivoted fast, tone shifting from speculation to certainty. Words like systematic abuse and premeditated fraud replaced allegations. Marcus's attorney canceled all interviews. At the holding facility, Marcus demanded a phone call. When it connected, his voice was tight, unraveling. "You think you won." "I think you're exposed," Lydia replied calmly. "You brought outsiders into this," he snapped. "You poisoned them." "You did that yourself," Lydia said. "I just stopped cleaning up after you." Silence crackled. "They'll tear you apart too," Marcus said. "People don't like women who don't forgive." "I'm not asking to be liked," Lydia replied. "I'm asking to be done." He hung up. The next day, the charges expanded. Financial fraud, identity theft, coercive control, witness tampering. The list scrolled longer than Lydia expected. Naomi pleaded guilty to a lesser charge. Megan accepted a deal. Alina watched the news in stunned silence, the weight of years settling into her shoulders. "I was wrong about everything," she whispered. Lydia stood by the window. "You were wrong about silence." Alina nodded, tears falling. "I don't know how to fix this." "You don't," Lydia said. "You live with it." The trial date was set. On the morning of the verdict, Lydia sat in the courtroom, hands folded, breathing slow. Marcus avoided her gaze now, eyes fixed on the table, jaw twitching. When the judge spoke, the words were precise, unforgiving. "Guilty." The sound landed without drama. No gasp, no collapse, just finality. Marcus closed his eyes. Lydia felt something loosen in her chest. Not joy, not triumph, but an immense quiet. Outside, reporters surged. "Ms. Rowan, do you feel justice was served? Do you forgive him? What message do you have for survivors?" Lydia paused, choosing her words carefully. "Abuse doesn't always shout," she said. "Sometimes it whispers and waits for you to doubt yourself. If you're listening to that whisper right now, trust it." That night, Lydia sat alone on the balcony again, city lights steady below. Caleb joined her, handing her a glass of water. "It's over." She nodded, yes. And I don't feel empty," Lydia said. "I thought I would." Caleb smiled softly. "What do you feel?" She considered it present. Her phone buzzed one last time. A message from Iris, "Thank you. I slept for the first time in years." Lydia closed her eyes. Marcus had taken years from her, but he hadn't taken her future. And for the first time since she stepped onto that ferry, Lydia knew something with absolute certainty. The story no longer belonged to him. Morning came quietly. No sirens, no alerts, no urgent messages vibrating her phone. Lydia woke before the alarm, sunlight cutting across the room in clean lines, and for a moment she stayed still, listening. The city hummed below, ordinary, indifferent, alive. It felt unfamiliar to wake without dread. She sat up and pressed her feet to the floor. This was what it felt like when the waiting ended. Caleb was already in the kitchen when she stepped out, sleeves rolled up, coffee brewing. He glanced over his shoulder. "You slept." "I did," Lydia said. Her voice sounded steadier than she expected. "All the way through." He smiled but didn't say anything, as if afraid to disturb the moment. They ate in silence, not awkward, just calm. Afterward, Lydia picked up her phone and scrolled once, deliberately. The headlines were still there, but the tone had changed again. Not fascination, not outrage. Closure. She set the phone down. Later that day, Lydia returned to Ashmere Bay one last time. Not for court, not for family, for herself. She parked near the marina where it had started, the ferry dock, the wet wood, the gulls circling overhead. The air smelled the same, salt and wind and old memories. She walked slowly, hands in her coat pockets, feeling the ground beneath her feet. A few people recognized her, some nodded. One woman hesitated, then spoke. "I'm sorry," the woman said, "for believing what was easy." Lydia studied her face. "Belief is a choice," she said, "so is change." She continued walking. At the end of the pier, she stopped. The water moved steadily below, indifferent to stories and names. She thought of the girl she'd been, the one who had stood here years ago, shaking, convinced leaving meant losing. She spoke softly to no one. "You didn't fail." The wind carried the words away. Eleanor didn't come outside when Lydia went to the house. The door was unlocked. Inside, the rooms felt smaller, quieter, stripped of the tension that had once filled them. Lydia walked through without touching anything, then paused at the hallway mirror. She barely recognized herself. Not because she'd changed her face, but because her eyes no longer looked like they were bracing for impact. She left the house keys on the table and walked out without looking back. That evening, as she and Caleb drove away for the last time, Lydia felt something settle fully into place. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation. Finality. Weeks passed. The trial faded into memory. Marcus's sentencing came and went. Naomi entered a long, supervised process of accountability. Megan disappeared from the public eye. Ashmere Bay returned to being a town that smiled for tourists and buried its discomfort under tradition. Lydia didn't follow any of it closely. She and Caleb moved somewhere quieter, somewhere with mornings that belonged to them. Lydia began working again, not because she needed distraction, but because she wanted purpose that was hers alone. She chose projects carefully. She learned the joy of saying no without explanation. One afternoon, a letter arrived. No return address. Inside was a single page, handwritten, shaky. "I used to think control was love. I was wrong. I'm sorry for what I became around him." No name. Lydia read it once, then folded it and placed it in a drawer. Not to save it, not to burn it. Just to let it exist without power. That night she stood on the balcony again, city lights distant now, softer. Caleb joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "You okay?" he asked. "Yes," Lydia said, and meant it. He kissed her temple. "What are you thinking about?" She watched the horizon. "How strange it is," she said, "that I spent years trying to prove I wasn't what he said, when the real freedom came from no longer caring what he said at all." Caleb nodded. "That's the last thing people like him lose." Silence settled between them, warm and unthreatening. Lydia thought of the whisper she'd spoken about before, the one abuse leaves behind, the voice that asks you to doubt yourself. She listened inward now and heard something different. Trust. Not loud, not dramatic. Steady. Her phone buzzed once more. A notification from a small organization she'd quietly supported, asking if she'd consider speaking, not about the case, but about rebuilding after loss. Lydia smiled faintly and typed a reply. Yes, on my terms. She set the phone down and leaned into Caleb's shoulder. Some stories ended with justice. Some ended with love. Hers ended with something rarer. Self-respect. And that quiet, unyielding, earned, was the power she would never